Our chalice lighting words this morning are from our colleague, the Reverend Gretchen Haley. Come in, all who long to know how to love this world, how to keep our eyes open, our hands unclenched, our arms wide, breathing deeply, yes, breathing deeply in and out. This is a time to practice because there is still so much good. There is still so much beauty. There is still so much joy, but it can be hard to keep telling this tale with all the news and the wind and the rain and the storms and the great and trembling earth. It can be hard to keep telling this story that there is still so much good. Come in. All of you who teeter on the edge of cynicism, brokenhearted and trying still to remember laughter and kindness and the chance to be alive in these days when so much is at stake. In this place, we remind each other why we persist, give each other courage to take this path that is not always easy toward joy, to keep practicing this love that we preach, this love that cannot, will not let us go, and still calls us on. Come, let this light shine.
Welcome, welcome, good morning, and welcome. Welcome to this place of community, spirit, and service made whole by each one of us. Welcome to this place where we bring our imperfect selves full of joys and sorrows. Welcome to this hybrid space where we gather near and far, in person and online, knowing that it is not just about the place where we gather, but the space that we each create. Welcome to this place of belonging and of becoming. Our theme this month for worship and family ministry is opening to joy, which, as we know, can be a tall order in these times, but perhaps in this space of time, we can tap into the joy we create when we gather. If you're new or you're feeling new to the space, please reach out for connection, an opportunity to join in on all that we do and create in this space. But for this morning and in this time, come, let us worship together.
Gives us breath, such a truth as ends all strife, such a life as killeth death. Come, my light, my feast, my strength, such a light as shows a feast, such a feast as mends in length, such a strength as makes his guest. Come, my joy, my love, my heart, such a joy as none can move, such a love as none can part, such a heart as joys in love.
We gather in a time of community that serves not just one kind of person, but all kind of people, people of all ages, people of all backgrounds, people with broken hearts and soaring dreams today. And in this time in our service, we gather for what we call prophetic voices, the sharing of voices around the world and across time who express the wisdom of the ages in a variety of forms. Prophetic voices can come in the form of poetry, in story, in preaching, and today, and in fact all month, as we celebrate what it is to embrace joy in a complicated season, prophetic voices can come in song. Our prophetic voices today come, in fact, as a gift from the River Road Choir, who recorded a piece of absolute joy, Cantar, a celebration to call out love and delight all around us. What a gift it is when the prophets indeed are the composers and the musicians and us.
Sing alleluia, canta una canzone allegra.
joy to see this space singing with voices at night, Cliff doing a absolutely athletic feat of direction, and all of us making it work. Part of what it means to be prophets in our times is to meet the constraints that keep us safe, to meet the challenges that bring us to tears, and yes, to not forget the joy that brings us to absolute ribald laughter. We come together to hold all of it. And it's difficult, honestly, to put into words everything that once again we are gathering to hold, both in our hearts and in our collective life. The deadliest tornadoes in the entire history of the state of Kentucky ripped through much of the Midwest yesterday, leaving scores of people dead, passing close enough to my own hometown that my parents sheltered in place. And so many beloveds weathered the storm or did not. Knowing that this, yet another climate catastrophe, follows the realities of this moment in our Earth's history and in the epoch-changing choices that we make right now in relationship to the climate crisis that will not abate unless we choose to make it so. We gather on the week when Pearl Harbor Day was honored in this country, a day when soldiers and veterans in our own midst wait out the midst of their own transitions. We gather remembering those who served and remembering those who feared and remembering those who died, remembering an era not so far distant from this one. And this week, along with our sister congregation, the Unitarian Universalists in Rockville, we mourn the death of our colleague Matthew P. Taylor. Matthew was the intern minister at UU Rockville. He died unexpectedly and with astonishing sorrow, so that the entire community in Rockville and Unitarian Universalists throughout the region are shaken and grieving. He is also yet another in a long line of too many ministers and clergy and religious professionals of color in our association who have died too soon during this pandemic era. We grieve Matthew. We hope that his ministry is carried on in those of us who continue, and we celebrate every difference he made in the world. We also lift up our own stories, our own struggles in our own lives, the fact that Linda Ryden is not singing with us in the Christmas Eve choir nor with us today because she has been tending to her family. She's been with her mother in Connecticut after a bad fall. I told her that I remember her whole family singing with us on Christmas Eves past, and we know that their hearts are with us this year. We lift up Raj Mehta, who's scheduled for the second of 2 cataract surgeries, knowing that the first went well and hoping that he can move forward with indeed clear eyes, and the hope that that vision might guide him to all that his life calls him to in the days and the years to come. For all this, for the anniversaries and the losses and the rubble and the hope, for the good care and the ones who keep on keeping on, we light a candle, we hold brief silence, and we commit to begin again.
I now invite you into a time and place of stillness, of presence, and of groundedness. Perhaps sinking deep into where you stand, where you sit, whether you're at home or here in person, closing your eyes or lowering your gaze. We open our hands, we open our hearts, and we invite into this space the spirit of life and the spirit of love. We invite into this place and this space the spirit that rises among us when we gather week after week, time after time, in the midst of so many joys and sorrows. We gather not as perfect people. We gather not as people who know it all and have all of the answers, but as a people with willing and open hearts. We lift up our hearts to those undergoing transitions, those who are undergoing illness, isolation, loss, the joy and the sorrow of beginning again. We are people who begin again and again. We're people who see one another through. We call in that strength of presence. We call in the presence of one another. Our hearts are with those who are struggling with loss after the latest disaster in Kentucky. Those in our own region who are struggling with the loss of another colleague, of a friend, of a family member. We call in the healing presence, the healing that can come from community. As we move into this season of joy, as we move into this season of gathering among friends and family, may we steady our hearts. May we hold space for the grieving and for the loss. And may we hold space for the joy. May we simply hold space for one another, however we arrive. May it always be so. Blessed be.
The stirrings of compassion blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to
Each month here at River Road, we extend our offering to a community organization which lives into the promise and the practice of the beloved community. For this month of December, that organization is Beacon House. Beacon House provides after-school programs, youth services, support, and guidance, all of which nurtures the upcoming generation. Closing the education achievement gap is a priority of this programming. And here to share more about Beacon House is Beth Mellon, who serves as the board chair. Welcome so much, Beth.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here. I'm actually a former member of this congregation. See some familiar faces. I'm now a member at the Rockville congregation. I'm also from Kentucky, so really appreciate all the words that are being shared this morning. But I'm here to tell you a little bit about Beacon House. I am finishing my 7th year
I've got a mind that can think. There may be times when I lose the light and let my spirit sink, but I can't stay depressed when I remember how I'm blessed. Grateful, grateful, truly grateful I am. Grateful, grateful, truly blessed and duly grateful. In a city of strangers, I've got a family of friends. No matter what rocks and brambles fill the way, I know that they will stay until the end. I feel a hand holding my hand. It's not a hand you can see, but on the road to the promised land, this hand will shepherd me through delight and despair, holding tight and always there. Grateful, grateful, truly grateful I am. Grateful, grateful, truly blessed and duly grateful. It's not that I don't want a lot, or hope for more, or dream of more, but giving thanks for what I've got makes me so much happier than keeping score in a world that can bring pain. I will still take each chance, for I believe that whatever the terrain, our feet can learn to dance, whatever stones life may sling. We can moan or we can sing. Grateful, grateful, truly grateful I am. Grateful, grateful, truly blessed and duly grateful. Truly blessed and duly grateful.
Thank you, Michael. And Cliff and Schwai, thank you. It feels these days like we need to collectively pastor to each other right here in the Washington, D.C. region. And that song and this moment, I think, pastored to me. And I suspect to all of you. Because here we are, right? Here we are in this place where it does not even take a good pitching arm to be a stone's throw from our nation's capital. Here we are in this space at home. Too many government servants gathered among us to even try to shake a stick at all of you at once. Here we are, People who wake up every single day to the reality that the events of the world, the events the world is watching, they happen right here in our own backyard. Events riddled with tragedy and with cynicism, with the breakdown of a great many things we hold dear and a great many other things besides that protect us and that we count on to keep us alive. Here we are in this place, people who know what it is like to live inside of breaking news. People who know what it is like to find joy and connection in the very places the rest of the world might view only from the safe distance of a headline screen. Did you know, for instance, that a little gathering of diverse and multicultural families from River Road recently gathered up for fancy micro-brew beer and pizza just up the road on Connecticut Avenue at Comet for beer and laughter and community? A perfect little neighborhood pizza joint in our own town where we get to show up and tell jokes that are sometimes funny and sometimes not and laugh and be each other's people. It was lovely, this gathering of multicultural River Road families. Merriment made, friendships begun, the whole 9 yards right there at Comet. Ping pong and pizza. The very place where 5 years ago a 28-year-old man who had never met our neighbors nor been in our neighborhood burst through those very doors carrying an AR-15 and demanding to know where the kidnapped children were being kept. It's that place, our place. You know the story because we were there. Literally, metaphorically, you know the fear that the story of Pizzagate, the risk to our neighbors it raised. You know the fear that perhaps rises up in you right now, in your body, in this minute, just by my asking us to remember it today. You know, when we think on how much we have seen and known together in this place in the course of the last 12 months alone. The storming of the Capitol took place almost a year ago now. Fueled, of course, by the same ideological infection that led to a gun at the door of a neighborhood pizzeria, the same story of misplaced rage. Understanding that ideological infection, many of us will also remember what it felt like to live right here in the Washington, D.C. region on the night of the inauguration, which also approaches 1 year ago, when fear and possibility commingled in our hearts. You may know that on the night of the inauguration, 20,000 troops made it impossible for insurrectionists to make it through the blockade of the Capitol steps. And because those insurrectionists back in town for the inauguration were denied entry to the Capitol itself, those same people made their way uptown right back to our neighborhood pizza joint just over a year ago. That night of the inauguration, the QAnon protesters gathered right there on a bucolic Chevy Chase street, familiar to so many, a neighbor to so many. They yelled that Q had sent them. They seethed about what had been stolen. They demanded that the children in the basement that does not even exist be freed, chanting the same violent chants over and over again until the owners of Comet, Ping Pong, and Pizza opened their doors to the street and started blasting Connecticut Avenue with music. Specifically, what Comet Pizza was blasting out at the QAnon protesters on inauguration night just last January was Lady Gaga's 2002 mega hit, Born This Way. Don't be a drag, just be a queen. I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way. They straight up took the knob and they turned it up to 11, and there it was, an anthem that rings out in every drag bar and techno club in the world, where all the sparkled and spangled and queer, fabulous, wild and unbroken little monsters shouted out as a hymn of equality and inclusion and dance, dance, dance until the hurt goes away. Now, believe it or not, I have actually preached entire sermons before about the sheer joy-wrangling power of Lady Gaga songs. I remember once hearing such a song played also with the volume knob turned up to 11 among a gathering of Avon ladies who were far more faithful than we Unitarian Universalists primly gathered in the next room. This means clearly that Lady Gaga's entire canon is some sort of sacred text to me. And I must say, there is something about the imaginative world that is conjured in such a song where everyone is free to love who they love and live in their shame-free bodies, celebrating uniqueness as beauty and art as liberation. In the imaginative reality of that song, blasted out into the middle of Connecticut Avenue into the faces of QAnon protesters, the artists and the people are collectively conjuring a multiracial, non-binary American reality that never was and yet shall be. And so Comet Pizza blasted that vision. Out into the cold night air, they blasted that sheer pulsating joy right out into the city street. And just like that, when the beat thumped like the city's own heartbeat, you know what happened? The QAnon protesters silently dispersed into the night, leaving only a cloud of pulsating fabulosity sounding out behind them. They left. Right there in our neighborhood, fear came as a deadly disease in the night. And right there, in our neighborhood, joy was and is the antidote. In an interview with Krista Tippett a few years ago, during the beginning of the Trump era before the pandemic, the poet and essayist Ross Gay noted that it was and still is an interesting and complicated time for any person with a social conscience to devote themselves to capturing the essence of joy. There is a question floating around in the world right now, Krista Tippett noted, as if speaking for us all: how can we be joyful in a moment like this? To which the author, Ross Gay, who has committed his professional life to writing poems of joy, he responds, how can we not be joyful, especially in a moment like this? How can we not equip ourselves to notice what is worth saving amid the rubble? This kind of joy is what Ross Gay calls adult joy. Joy that does not look away from or cease perceiving harm, but blesses what is right here before us so that we have the wherewithal to interrupt the deadly forces all around before they lay claim to yet more lovely thing. When I think of adult joy, he says, it carries with it the understanding of profound sorrow and loss and change. I think of the ways in which you and I carry these things together, and I think of our fundamental interconnectedness. When I think of that joy, it starts to make me feel less what? Less alone. It's Ross Gay who, by the way, writes of this powerful memory that even those who are brought to death by a system of injustice bring life alongside them. How can we not be joyful in a moment like this? And what is the cost if we forget how? He wrote once that Eric Garner, it turns out, before he was murdered, he worked in the horticultural office of the Parks and Planning Department on Staten Island, which means there are plants and trees and seeds and growth that were held in Eric Garner's own living hands before he was taken too soon. There is growth and life and abundance and glory that was planted by his labor that shines and lives still. How can we not be joyful in times such as this? Because without an interconnected, sorrowful, beautiful joy, life becomes, and I'm going to quote an HBO TV show, Little Baby Jesus Help Me. Without that interconnected, beautiful joy, life becomes what the plutocrat, power-hoarding character Logan Roy in HBO's Succession recently said it is: a number on a piece of paper, a fight for a knife in the mud. This cynicism is deadly as any pathogen. It spins us out in cycles of self-loathing and self-regard, which is why, in the words of one of Ross Gay's poems, if you find yourself half naked and barefoot in the frosty grass, hearing again the earth's great sonorous moan that says you are the heir of the now and gone, that says all you love will turn to dust and will meet you there, do not raise your fist. Do not raise your small voice against all that you have lost. Do not take cover against all you will yet lose. Instead, curl your toes into that grass. Watch the cloud ascending from your lips. Walk through the garden's dormant splendor. Say only, thank you. Thank you. Say only thank you and see if that joy dispels the apathy and the fear enough to carry on toward a different, fairer, freer, and more survivable world. This week, I was lucky to watch an advanced screening copy of a new documentary about the extraordinary friendship between His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa. Two Nobel Peace Prize recipients who behave when they are put together in a room in a way that can only be described as with the energy of 8-year-old boys. These two men, one in exile for most of his life while his people's very culture and freedom is decimated, one a leader whose people were literally hunted for generations in his own homeland. These men, both routine recipients of death threats for the better part of 50 years, these men, they get together and they laugh so hard and they make fun of each other so wonderfully that it was almost impossible for the filmmakers to get them to shut up and be filmed already. It is astonishing to watch them. They touch each other all the time. I think of my grandma, who always used to reach out and grab my hand and give those little pats. They grab each other's hands constantly, always touching, affirming, grasping, reaching. They gesture broadly in one another's direction and violently away from the camera as if they are each the only audience that the other could ever need. They attend to one another in a way that makes it seem the whole rest of the world doesn't exist for a moment except for that friendship. Now, Archbishop Tutu, whom apparently everyone simply calls Arch, he tells the Dalai Lama at one point to get down to business and stop being mischievous. You are supposed to be a holy man now, he says. To which the Dalai Lama, I kid you not, mocks the Archbishop in a way that only a best friend can for being bald, and not bald by choice like he is. And on the Dalai Lama's birthday, when his best friend, the Archbishop, comes down to celebrate with him, and thousands of children from the Tibetan Children's Home, people in exile in madrasa, they come to sing for the Dalai Lama. Those children, they stand together and perform that classic 90s number everyone knows a little too well. We are the world. We are the children. And do you know that they're sitting on this like flower-strewn dais as if designed for gods? They have prayer shawls all wrapped around them, and Archbishop Desmond Tutu gets up when those kids start to sing, and he practically bites his lower lip, and he just starts like straight up grooving, like all the way, getting down, just 100% getting down, and he reaches down and forces his beautiful old friend, the Dalai Lama, to stand in that sacred place with him, to which the Dalai Lama is completely awkward. Because what Desmond Tutu does not know is the Dalai Lama's vows as a monk proclaim that he can neither sing nor dance, but live a life of prayer. But his friend has pulled him up, and because he will not deny his friend his holiness, the Dalai Lama, listening to a cheesy 90s tune, does this. And in that moment, people who have seen more pain than any of us can imagine collectively, individually. People who have lived a life that gives every right to cynicism and sorrow remind us what it is to flat out commit once again to joy. There is glory in it all. And when they are asked why their central mission together is to spread the kind of joy which they have lived in, even amid the rubble of injustice, His Holiness for once got serious when he said, the essence of joy is to get in touch with your natural compassion and let yourself live from it in every way. And his old friend Arch, smiling as always, he grabs the Dalai Lama's hand and reminds us all that we must be prisoners not of fear but of hope, that the only way to reach serenity is by practicing that hope, like a muscle to be exercised, that joy is the reward that comes from this practice, and that all of us have the potential to be instruments of compassion and forgiveness. And the old friends say that when we nurture that potential, the joy in this life, for all of its pain, cannot be suppressed for long. Which is why joy, in a time like this, it's not optional. It's not a dalliance or a distraction or a frippery. It is the thing that saves us over and over again. As Adrienne Marie Brown has said, feeling good is not frivolous, it is freedom. It's life which cannot bring forth new life or new change or a chance for the ones to follow if we don't dance our way through it. Joy is the antidote. It's cynicism that kills, quickly or slowly, dramatically or deliberately. Joy is the antidote. And it rings out like music, as music, in the night air, in the morning light, in this moment, and always. May it be so, and amen. So much gratitude for everybody who brings the opportunity to celebrate to us, not just today, but every single Sunday. Today, we have got Scott and Jeff working tech. Thank you, team. Natalie at home on the Zoom. We have got Michael Nonsel bringing everything to us with that voice full of soul and spirit. Thank you, Schwei, Cliff, the choir. Of course, Beth being here for Beacon House. One more round of applause for everybody. And you all, I have the best news. Like, I've been freaking out and trying to behave, but I have like the best news today. You're not gonna believe it. So, some of you know this is not the good part, that our partners and longtime companions in faith, Scotland AME Zion Congregation, which their historic building is right up the road near Seven Locks. They suffered historic flood damage to their building in 2019. Throughout the pandemic, they have been worshiping largely online and had a very hard time finding a sacred space in which to gather for their Sunday services. Starting today at 11:30, Our friends at Scotland AME Zion will consecrate and christen the fellowship hall as their new worship space. They will be gathering 2 Sundays a month with all of the heart and all of the love that they can muster in that place. I took a picture and sent it to Dr. Evelina Huggins, who is their pastor. I said, Pastor, here is the view from your pulpit this morning. What a gift. We know that everything we do together is an expression of who we want to be together, and there are so many things that you can find out more in your e-weekly and the bulletin. Remember that I often get the details of announcements wrong, so check the e-weekly for the real scoop. We are delighted that today we have CC&C online starting at 12. Today's CC&C is about aging in place, a really important topic about renewing community social connections. It's going to be a beautiful program. You can log in right at noon. We also have listening sessions starting up soon with our Action in Montgomery team. These listening sessions are happening around the county, not just here at River Road, in which we're asking truly at every different spectrum of the religious and community sector here in Montgomery County what it is that can help our families and our congregations thrive. We hope you'll say yes if an invitation to be part of those listening sessions crosses your screen, and also look for the times when you can join us. We are, as many of you know, in a long-standing and renewing partnership with the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition. You can see the full historic display that's right out here in the lounge about those efforts. We are postponing a December 15th action that we had planned with the Cemetery Coalition and instead engaging in a letter writing campaign starting this week. There will be details in the e-weekly, so you can check those out. And also, we hope that you will look in your email inbox for a general what is up with the holidays message that is on its way. We will be having Christmas Eve services. The pageant is at 4 o'clock, the candlelight service at 7. We'll be, of course, masking, practicing social distancing, and keeping our numbers somewhat limited and asking for pre-registration for those services. We're delighted that our solstice service will be coming back. It's going to be amazing with live folk music, the chance to gather here in the evening at River Road, and lots of family activities. So please track down that email. Don't delete it when it hits your inbox. Yes, and the music service is Sunday the 19th, 1 week from now. My friends, the choir is coming back. For real. For real. It has been a long time coming. And so, as we are so deeply blessed by the gifts of this community and each other's simple graciousness, go then to be who you already are. You are the beloved and precious children of everything that is sacred in this world. And the goodness and mercy, the joy and the justice, the power and the possibility of the Spirit are at loose in you, and through you set loose in the world. So go then, to be who you already are, and may you be abundantly blessed. Our service is ended, and amen.